So the BPT of 5%, do you think that can already be brought back to
I have made my
4%?
position about that, and I have said that I don't want it rolled back. I'd like to see what fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021 gives, because as a result of what has happened, we were able to actually also close the gap as a result of President Trump's Jobs Act legislation that took away about 68 million from our general fund. So those are the kinds of things that I am really looking at, Heidi, before, and like I have said, I have spoken to many business leaders also, and they are okay with the 5%.
Will that stay at least until 2020, fiscal year 2021, so 2022, there might be a
I would like
consideration.
for it to stay, and I'd like for it to stay forever.
For as many accolades and celebrations.
Half day, everybody. Thank you for joining Kandit. I'm Johnny Rosario,
And I'm Troy Torres.
and today is our second September 19th newscast, Thursday. Thank you
Welcome.
for joining us.
Welcome to today.
And don't forget to share your love with Kandit on Facebook and on YouTube.
Especially on YouTube.
Yes.
'Cause
And we
Facebook-
do have we're working on our website, so please bear with us. But you can go there and read some of our stories.
Yeah, if you email news at candidnews.com and just put add me, we'll add you onto the mailing list so that you'll be the first to receive our stories.
Or you
basically.
can just sign up on our website.
Yeah, if you can scroll all the way down, you'll see a subscriber thing at the bottom of the homepage. And so the homepage isn't updated, but the posts or the news page is. That's where all of the news, you'll see the news. Anyway, we're working on it, and it'll be spick and span by the time we're done with all of that. But welcome to all of our viewers and all of you who participate on the comments section. We love the comments. It's our favorite part. From around the world, from Guam, from the region. Tonight we have all three of our standard segments. It'll be the first time we have all three of our standard segments up. The first is the good stuff. Second is Guput Gobyerno, for all the party that our government does on our dime. And we'll have national and international news. And one of those stories is actually very interesting and has to do with Guam. So let's get started with the good stuff. So throughout this whole 2 weeks of everyone or parents basically living on edge on what is happening in the high schools. I'm looking at the wrong camera, aren't I? On what is happening in the high schools. There was a riot at John F. Kennedy High School. There was a fight where someone mentioned bringing a knife. And then there was a riot at Teton High School that ended in some injuries to 7 people. 6 of those kids were taken into custody. One of them was already 18 years old. And so there were a lot of rumors going around that it was just a matter of time before the other high schools would follow suit, that it was some sort of game that the high school students were playing. But I just want to give a shout out to the South because I'm Southern, and because the South normally gets bad rap, and I think many people had some sort of expectation that the worst of the riots was coming up with Southern High School. However, thanks to the leadership of its principal, Michael Meno, and his administrators team over at Southern High School, the collaboration among teachers and the staff there, and most especially the students of Southern High School, while all of this BS was happening in the other high schools, Southern High School just thought, you know what, niggas? That's old stuff. That's old. We're not about that stupid violence stuff.
We're here to learn.
We're here to learn. We're gonna show you guys up. These are images from Southern High School today of students collaborating around their tables. These were just taken in different areas of the school. And what they were doing while they were not in the classroom is, well, let's see some school spirit first. There we go.
Southern High, and we love circles. Just like God.
Now, that wasn't the only thing that they were doing during their breaks or during their between classes thing. This is what else was happening in the common areas of Southern High School. They were dancing. Playing baseball. Those are the kids of tomorrow. Those are the leaders of tomorrow. I'm sorry. Those are the adults of tomorrow. Mm-hmm. They're showing what a perfect example of a campus that's run where their parents don't have to worry whether their kids are okay, because they're not only are they learning, but they're getting along. They're being adults. And that's much more than we can say about a lot of adults on this island.
It could be too. They watched the news and they watched what's been going on in the other schools, and maybe it scared them as well. And
they made a conscious decision to not bow down to the peer pressure of
right.
We're going to have this school competition.
Because there was messages in WhatsApp circulating that the next school was going to be Southern High, the next school after that was going to be Sanchez. So.
I also hear, Cholo, that good things are happening at Okudu High School. We just don't have the images and the videos yet. But as I understand it, the principal there and her Principal Begonia Flores, her leadership team, the teachers at Okudu are doing good things to channel the kids' energies. And they're, you know what, I'm sorry, they're not kids. These are teenagers who are
young
almost adults. These are young adults. Channel these young adults' energies into positive things and also conflict resolution, because not everything's positive.
Well, if we can put our effort into getting the kids into a positive mindset, and at the same time also be vigilant about this dengue, I think there should be enough more, instead of us having to prepare for the dengue, instead of it being taken care of when it should have been taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so,
I get it, and that's actually one of our stories tonight. But before we get to that segment, we have two more stories under the good stuff, and they're unfortunately, so the kids at Southern High show us, the young adults at Southern High show us how adulting should be, but unfortunately we have a couple of adults who might need some help. And so, Johnny, I think you have a story regarding a wife beater.
Prosecutor Stephen Hatterley is accusing a man of strangling, beating, and threatening to kill his wife. At 2:01 p.m. yesterday, Ugin walked into the Agana precinct to report her husband for physically abusing her, pointing an AR-15 rifle at her, threatening to kill her, and grabbing a kitchen knife and chasing her into the restroom where she locked herself to escape death. The victim told police that the night before, at 11 p.m., she and her She and her husband, Vince Chigina Uggan, who was drunk, was arguing. Mr. Uggan pushed her several times in the chest before she bent over to pick up clothes on the ground. He then stepped down on her neck before pushing her against the closet and punching her on both sides of her stomach. The victim broke away, but he was able to reach her as she ran and strangled her for at least 10 seconds. He pulled her hair and squeezed her head. He retrieved a kitchen knife and chased her to the bathroom where she had locked herself. He shouted at her, "I'm going to stab you." Their son was in the bedroom at this time when this was happening. Ms. Uggan told the police that 3 weeks prior to the assault, Mr. Uggan pointed his rifle at her and threatened to kill her. The weapon is registered to him. Mr. Uggan admitted to police that he had been drinking the previous night but denied ever assaulting or threatening the victim. Mr. Hatterley, in his declaration of probable cause to the Superior Court, accuses Mr. Uggan of 1 count strangulation as a third-degree felony and 2 counts of terrorizing as a third-degree felony. He is also accusing Mr. Uggan of 2 counts of family violence as a third-degree felonies.
I almost knocked over the lights. It was a very Roel Santiago kind of moment. And if any of you know Roel, the late Roel Santiago, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He almost killed Governor Bordallo once.
Who's this?
My old coworker, Roel Santiago, he was the photographer for Governor Camacho, but he owned his own, what was the name of his studio, Cello? Photoworks. He owned Photoworks, like one of the best photographers ever. And he had a massive heart attack. He was very young. He had a massive heart attack. He left behind a wife and a son. But he was the clumsiest guy ever. Back in when Governor Bordallo was the governor, it was a long time ago, right? So you can see the lights we have. They're light. Back then, these were like the really hefty lights with the glass and everything. It was very hot, and they were high voltage lights too. And so there was either a video shoot or a photo shoot of like the Governor Bordallo doing like a message to the people or something. And Roel was doing his thing, setting things up, chatting with Governor Bordallo, and he trips over one of the wires, and this light, like one of these lights, just starts to come down right at Governor Bordallo's head, and Roel is able to catch it like right on time. He almost killed the governor. He loved telling that story. I love that guy. Rest in peace, Roel Santiago. So, do you want to talk about this? Is there anything to talk about on the story?
No, just that the guy's in jail. So
can you give me some time so I can put in my password here so I can get my teleprompter working? Okay, my teleprompter's up. Thanks. A Superior Court judge released self-admitted career criminal and convicted sex offender Mariano Canata earlier this year, allowing him to violate his pretrial release conditions and lead police on a chase. Prosecutor Jeremy Kemper, in his declaration of probable cause issued against Mr. Canata, said that yesterday at approximately 4:30 a.m., Guam Police Department officers on patrol noted a green Nissan Sentra drifting between lanes in Maiti. The vehicle also ran a red light and crossed over a solid white line. Due to the erratic driving, the operator of the vehicle was suspected to be intoxicated. Officers activated the police cruiser lights and sirens to effectuate a traffic stop. The suspect vehicle pulled over to the side of the road, but after the officer stepped out of his patrol vehicle, the suspect vehicle sped away. Police officers followed Mr. Canata from Maiti to Agate. During the chase, he made several traffic violations, weaving in and out of traffic and crossing the lanes without using turn signals. He eventually turned off onto a dirt road where the occupants of the vehicle jumped out. Mr. Canata has several outstanding warrants. He was convicted in 2014 for third-degree criminal sexual conduct against a 14-year-old girl and registered as a level 3 sex offender. Mr. Canata had not spent much time in prison for his crime. In 2016, he was charged with family violence. In 2017, he was charged with reckless driving. On May 16, 2019, police officers arrested Mr. Canata again for possession of methamphetamine when an ice pipe was found in his pocket during a traffic stop. In this latest magistrate's complaint, Mr. Kemper accuses Mr. Canata of the crime of eluding a police officer, Timothy Flores, by failing or refusing to stop when signaled to do so. So these weren't the only magistrates' complaints, but they were the ones that we chose to feature tonight. One, because of the severity of the. But one of Kandit's major themes is justice against the abuse of children and women, and so the abuse that this woman suffered, if it's found to be true, I mean that's pretty bad. And then there's also the. I can't help but think about all those people who are in jail. They did not get pretrial release for doing things that were less
None of his
severe.
crimes were victimless crimes.
Yeah, all of his crimes had except for the May 16 pullover.
Yeah.
So the rest of his crimes had victims.
The May 16 pullover is not him driving erratic. They just pulled him over and he had something with him.
He didn't have either his license plate was expired or
Okay, well maybe
there was
that.
some.
But even this last one, everybody on the road was a victim. Of his
Because
erratic
of
behavior.
Yes,
Right.
yes, absolutely. And so we don't feature every single accusation given by the Attorney General's office, but when we come across stuff like this, we figure you guys want to know about it.
Right.
And you want to know the information behind it. That's why we bring it. So when we come back from a break, we will get to Guput Gabietnu and some major stories in our island today.
So the BPT of 5%, do you think that can already be brought back to?
I have made my
4%?
position about that, and I have said that I don't want it rolled back. I'd like to see what fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021 gives, because as a result of what has happened, we were able to actually also close the gap as a result of President Trump's Jobs Act legislation that took away about 68 million from our general fund. So those are the kinds of things that I am really looking at, Heidi, before, and I, like I have said, I have spoken to many business leaders also, and they are okay with the 5%.
Will that stay at least until 2020, fiscal year 2021? So 2022, there might be a
I would like
consideration.
for it to stay, and I'd like for it to stay forever.
Tonight, Guam Public School Superintendent John Fernandez was not being truthful when he told Kandit News that the reason all public school children and their parents are being kept in the dark about the dengue emergency is because he can't speak about these issues. Fernandez claims that all information has to come from the Joint Information Center. Not only is that untrue, but it's a violation of his own adopted emergency plans. Guam's DOE standard operating procedure for their emergency response plan, SOP number 1300-002 emergency response plan, adopted and approved by the board and mandated to be followed, requires GDOE to inform the public, parentheses parents, of information as soon as it is available. The school's emergency response plan notes how critical it is for information to be given out in an accurate and timely manner during emergencies such as state of emergencies declared last week by the governor. The emergency response plan further mandates that GDOE translate all information since English is not the first language for some students and parents. Instead, GDOE has been silent, intentionally withholding information from students and parents. Not one single piece of paper or message from the superintendent has gone out to advise parents about the dengue situation. Despite patient 0 being a middle school student at Agata Johnson, and despite 2 schools having to be closed for 2 days of spraying. Kandit News has received a message given yesterday to all principals from a deputy superintendent, telling them they should encourage parents to allow their children to wear long sleeve shirts and long pants to school, even if it violates the uniform policy because of the dengue emergency. None of that information was sent to students to give to their parents. Why? Because John Fernandez refuses to say anything to the parents, students, or even his school board members unless it is released by the governor's Joint Information Center at Homeland Security. John Fernandez and his PIO Isa Baza have been busy this week celebrating birthdays and not doing the jobs they were hired to do. Protect the students and keep parents informed of all matters relating to the education, health, and welfare of their children. Isa Baza's main duties are to provide information to the students and their parents, and John Fernandez is tasked by law to keep our children safe. You do that by informing them of the situations ongoing at the schools and any danger that they may be facing the students. John Fernandez has failed our children, their parents, and has now opened up himself and every school board member to be sued in their personal capacities for violating the Every Child is Entitled to an Adequate Education Act, as well as other federal laws that are in place. But more importantly, John Fernandez's willful violation of their own SOPs and his actual duties he is being paid to do by the taxpayers is placing the lives of every single public school student in jeopardy.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So we saw those board policies, and you know
We've had it for a week already.
we were only able to get it because we dug, because
It's not available.
if you go on their website and you look up their standard operating procedures, the one on the emergency response plans for each of the schools,
Yes.
you have to be some sort of signed in or logged in school official in order to access that. It's limited access, not available to the public at all, which is so there's that. And there's the fact that we've been trying to get a hold of Isa Baza to provide us with information
And her boss gave us the number,
and told us to put her
add her
onto our
into the
WhatsApp
chat,
group.
right?
And she
We
was-
added, and not even minutes later, she removed herself. So she really feels like she doesn't need to answer
To the public.
to the public, and that is her job.
But did I see that correctly? Were those birthday
Yes, yes.
celebratory, like fireworks?
Yeah,
Over at DOE?
yeah, yeah. It's her birthday week, and then it's John Fernandez's birthday either today or yesterday.
So that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
During this entire emergency
yes,
crisis.
yes,
That's redundant. I said emergency crisis.
it's okay.
I mean, happy birthday to them, but my goodness, there are parents out there who are worried sick about their kids, and it's a good thing that deputy superintendent had the presence of mind to send out that notice about.
Maybe it's the attitude of I have a government paying job that they can't just fire me. Maybe her attitude really sucks.
Well, no, her attitude does suck.
So and these questions that we have aren't our questions. They're the parents'
Yeah.
questions. People calling in. So if she feels like she doesn't have to answer to us, there's something wrong. And if her boss tells her, Troy, if you told me, hey, make sure you answer these questions. This is your job. You're the PIO. And I remove myself from the chat, and I see it because you see that because are you just gonna allow that to happen or make excuses?
No, that's a dereliction of duty.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
well, someone made an excuse for her that she shouldn't be using her personal cell phone for business.
Yes, I use my personal cell phone all the time. All the time. Actually, my personal cell phone was maybe like 95% used for work.
Well, maybe
When I was in
maybe
the
she doesn't
government.
feel like she needs to answer to you because her boyfriend is her boyfriend is what's his
Turn
name?
in the tube.
What's the boyfriend's name?
Malfunction. I don't know if they're still together. It's just, whatever. Whatever.
Well, those of the same feather flock together.
No kidding. All right, on to our next story. Oh my goodness. The Joint Information Center has confirmed that 2 suspected cases of dengue infection came back from the laboratory as negative. There are no new suspected cases of dengue that officials are aware of, according to Bertha Tyron with the Department of Public Health and Social Services, who is operating from the Joint Information Center, or the JIC as they call it. This leaves patient 0, the 12-year-old Agata Johnson student from Manilao, and the male adult who lives along Swamp Road in Dededo, as the only 2 confirmed patients dealing with dengue infection. Unfortunately, that's all the information that we have so far, but fortunately, those 2 suspected cases are negative.
Thank God.
Yeah. And we don't know what vector control is up to.
But
what they've
that doesn't
discovered.
mean for us to not care. We still need to be vigilant with our kids. Wear long sleeves. We're child matching today.
You did yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Or, earlier tonight or earlier last night. So we were.
But I was wearing this first, okay?
We're wearing our dengue gear, our Lu-Flu gear.
Yes.
Hashtag Lu-Flu. Mm-hmm. We all need to be prepared for these invasive monsters in our lives, whether they come from mosquitoes or Adeloop. I think we're geared up for our next story. Hey. Hi. All right.
The grieving father of 5-year-old Asher Dean Lebowski, who died at Guam Memorial Hospital last year, and the daughter of a man fighting for his life at Guam Regional Medical Center, broke down before a hearing of at the Guam legislature to repeal the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act. Senator Therese Terlahi, the chairwoman of the Legislative Health Committee, and the senator taking the lead on a public review of the need to change or repeal the 1991 law, concluded the first of 3 hearings on the law before 4:45 p.m. today. David Lebowski, who was with his son in GMH Pediatrics Ward the morning of October 31, 2018, when he died. What was brought to me here is the worst nightmare that a parent can face. Mr. Lebowski testified before senators. The death of a child is an unrelenting, nonstop, painful nightmare. To make it more painful, and the reason that we are all here is about how our children and family members die due to medical negligence or malpractice needlessly, and those negligent doctors who then walk away with no accountability or even a record of what they did to then see and endanger others on Guam. Mr. Lebowski took his son to his annual physical exam with Dr. Shinshin Miyagi at 7-Day Adventist Clinic on October 29. Asher had been sick for a couple of days prior to his doctor's visit, a fact Mr. Lebowski made sure to tell the doctor. Dr. Miyagi, according to Mr. Lebowski, spent 15 minutes with Asher for an exam that routinely took an hour and not once checked his son's lungs with his stethoscope. Asher Dean was admitted to GMH the next day, was noted of having sepsis while admitted to the pediatrics ward, and was supposed to have been moved to the intensive care unit that night. From 7 p.m., October 30, 2018, to the time he died 12 hours later, not one single doctor ever checked on Asher. His testimony continued. This meeting is about real people. It's about our kids. It's about the death of Asher, baby Faith, Jackery Waken, Aiden, Charlie, and the list goes on of our dead kids due to negligence and legal cover-up with the Arbitration Act. Then the doctors who treated or mistreated these kids go on and treat your kids as if nothing happened. With arbitration, they could kill many kids. No one would even know. Is there even records of these incidents? Mr. Lebowski implored senators to repeal the law, testifying that the Apathy Act, as he terms it, it doesn't just make it impossible for poor and working class victims of malpractice to bring claims against bad doctors. He said the law causes some doctors on Guam to become and remain apathetic to the safety and care of their patients, as they realize no one will hold them accountable for their malpractice. We heard, he tells senators, I am sorry if you want to hold these people accountable in the death of Asher, you first have to enter arbitration and pay the huge expense of it. We heard this over and over, so I kept asking the obvious question. Can these doctors kill us, kill our kids, and then walk away with no accountability as few can afford the process? The killers of our family are protected by the legislative supported law, the Arbitration Act. How many families have buried loved ones due to negligence and were told the same thing? Sorry, nothing can be done. Is there no accountability for doctors? The law, he told senators, makes it so people of average or low income cannot afford to seek justice. Attorney Mitch Thompson, who admitted representing doctors against malpractice claims, said an important point to consider is that the cost of arbitration is split between the doctor and the person bringing the claim against the doctor. According to case filings in the Superior Court of Guam, the initial cost of filing the arbitration claim can range at around $60,000. Using Mr. Thompson's justification for the effectiveness of the law, those average or low-income claimants Mr. Lebowski describes already are priced out of making claims when you consider that their initial cost burden is around $30,000, which a doctor with high income can arguably can afford. Anna Lynn Legarmis's father, a construction worker on the upcoming Sabaki Tower, went into septic shock earlier this year. nearly died, was placed on dialysis, then slipped in and out of consciousness over a 2-week period. He survived his medical ordeal twice. Ms. Lagarmes described to senators during his stay at Guam Regional Medical Center, her father developed a bed sore that was recognized as stage 1 bed sore, or one that had recently developed. Hospital staff did not turn him over during his stay as required under medical protocols, and by the time the sore was observed again, it had developed into stage 4 bed sore, which can be fatal in his case, according to doctors. He will likely die. Ms. Lagarmes left her father's hospital bedside to testify before senators, implore them to repeal the arbitration law. She told senators he had fought to stay alive. However, due to negligence during his stay, he had developed a bed sore that they had allowed to progress into stage 4. In a critical state where the bed sore was now a giant crater-like wound that had reached the bone and is now the cause of the new infection that would most likely lead him back into septic shock, where he most likely will not survive the second time around. Had I not done the research myself and filed a formal complaint, they would not have attended to it or make me aware of his hospital-acquired stage 4 bed sore. She continued in her testimony, because of my dad's critical state, I took it upon myself to research how my dad got a crater-like wound on his butt when he had never had one before. I learned a bed sore doesn't progress into stage 4 overnight. It goes through stages 1, 2, and 3, and that with national standards are preventable at the early stage of 1 and 2, which I later found out started to occur in July 9th. Yet nothing was being done to treat it at the most basic level of care. He wasn't being turned every 2 hours or cleaned dry. Neither did the doctor or nurses inform us nor address it. Mr. Lahi, visibly moved by both Ms. Lagarmes and Mr. Lebowski's testimonies, thanked both testifiers and applauded them for the research they had done and presented to the senators. GRMC boasts high-quality care and quotes patients as partners, charging $3,000 a day in telemetry and close to $5,000 a day in the ICU. Yet they couldn't give him the simplest care to prevent something ultimately preventable. Ms. Lagarmes exclaimed to senators, "My dad is suffering, in pain, at risk of dying over something as small as a bed sore that they let progress for weeks before even doing anything. The worst feeling is to feel helpless, knowing more could have been done to prevent my father's suffering." How many have died over the years as this apathetic medical care, a product of arbitration protection, became part of our Guam physicians' culture, Mr. Lebowski lamented to senators. Baby Faith, who passed at GRMC, never got simple lab tests as the doctor seemed to not care and was not practicing defensive medicine. Asher Dean Lebowski went into the SDA clinic with symptoms, etc., but never got a simple CBC blood test or even the wellness exam that we were there for and paid for, which may have saved his life if the doctor was practicing defensive medicine. Senators Tello Taitigui, Kelly Marsh Titano, Amanda Shelton participated with Mr. Lahi in asking questions of those who testified, gathering more information for possible changes to or repeal of the law. Ms. Taitigui has previously told Kandit of months of research she has conducted on this issue and 3 legislative options she is exploring.
It was really hard to listen to. When I was watching the session or the hearing earlier, that was very hard to watch, especially when Mr. Lebowski broke down and Ms. Lagarmes, sorry, I don't know how to say her last name. When she broke down as well, but then also to see someone strong like Senator Teresa